it all again.
Okay, can you see this?
It just shows sharing screen, but it doesn't show anything up on it yet. There we go.
Okay. All right. So before we get started here, I'll share a little bit about who I am because most of you don't know me. I originated from Houston, Texas. All right. That's where I was conceived and born, in the fair city of Houston, Texas. Very proud to have been from there and lived the first 9 years of my life there. I also spent a year in Louisiana where my grandmother was sick. She was dying of cancer. It was a slow death, but she chose to be at home. So my mom went back to take care of her. And then we came to California. I guess that's where the excitement started. At any rate, growing up, I was very quiet and very shy. I want you to know that. Very introverted. And I had all these wonderful dreams of what I wanted to do. And I had people telling me, you can't do. I heard that so much that I started to believe I couldn't do any of the things that I wanted. I wanted to dance. I wanted to sing. I wanted to write. I wanted to act. I wanted to model. All these things that I wanted to do, and people kept telling me I could not do them. I was blessed to have a son. And I suddenly wanted something different for my son. Growing up in the projects, I didn't want that for him. And for the first year of his life, we were on the county, and I didn't want that for him. So that meant I had to step out and leave behind all those things and not listen any longer to what people told me I couldn't do. My first big break was when I went to Illinois, and I spent a year there, which was great. I loved the city. I went to Decatur, Illinois. I thought it was beautiful. It was a Norman Rockwell type setting. And I just fell in love with it. And I thought I would live there and stay there. But what happened was the winter came. And all of a sudden, I realized this is not going to work, because I had to walk a certain amount of distance to get to my job. The buses didn't go that far. I wore socks, stockings over, well, no, they called them union alls in those days anyway. I wore those with pants, with thick sweaters and jackets and scarves around my neck and things over my head and covering my nose and everything, and gloves, and I was still freezing. So when the spring came, I decided I'm going back home. This is too cold for me. So I came back to LA, and that's when I met my husband. We were married for over 50 years. He died a couple of years ago from cancer. And we were blessed to have 4 sons, which I had asked the Lord for. And you know, when you ask God for something, if you're not specific, you just might get what you asked for. And it might not be exactly the way you wanted it. I said I wanted nothing but boys. I forgot to tell him to make them boys not be interested in sports. Every single one of them plays sports. I am not into sports. Don't care about sports. I could care less about who won what. I still do not care about sports, but I spent my time running to practices and games and sitting there and not really knowing what was going on. But it was nice. The moms and things all teased me because when I come to practice, I hit my high heels and stockings off. And I'm sitting out there on the grass with them watching the kids and whatnot. But it gives me something to talk about. So I might have been a little odd, but it was fun to watch the kids grow up. I later lost a son, and he's going to be part of my talk today, or what I share with you. So I'm not going to say any more about that. But here's the thing. All those things people told me I couldn't do, I ended up doing them. I did get to sing. I got to sing in a choir, not by myself, thankfully, because if you heard my voice, you say, oh no. But I did get to sing. I got to dance. I actually danced on stage at a military base with a group. We did belly dancing for the guys. They probably didn't care if we were good or not. They were just excited to see us up there wiggling. So that was fun. So I got to dance. I got to model. I had a woman who took a look at me and said, I think you would be good to be in our fashion shows. So she put me in fashion shows. And then later I did produce my own fashion shows. So I got to do the modeling and then the writing. Now this one was the really toughie because this is the one I really, really wanted to do, was to write. And I had this fear in me, I couldn't do it. And so I kept pushing it aside. I do a little something, then I put it aside and forget all about it. And it was years before I decided to take a class and see if I could do any kind of writing at all. I entered a contest because it was an online class, and the guy who was doing the teaching the class decided to have a contest. There was 200 and some students in this class because the internet was still fairly new then. So it's about 200 and some of us in there. He wanted to have a contest, told us he would take the best 10 and put them in a book. And at the last minute, I decided to enter that contest. I got my story picked up. My story went in that book. So now I get to say I am an international award-winning author because the school was actually in Australia. The book was published in Australia. So I'm international. So that made me feel really great. But I still was a little hesitant because I thought, oh, that was just too easy. That's not going to work. That's too easy. I'm sharing all of this with you because it's important for you to know who I am and where I came from and how I got here. I did, after my mom passed away, a woman offered me the opportunity to be in a book compilation. And I took the chance of writing a story about my mom. My mother was a strong-willed person who, even though my dad left her with 4 kids that she had to take care of, and then she later had 2 more. So she raised 6 of us by herself. And she set her goals, her 4 goals. And over the years, we watched her talking about those goals and thinking, this is not going to happen. We're living in the projects, okay? And she had some lofty goals, and is not going to happen, but nobody would ever tell her that because we loved her too much. To make a long story short, my mother saw all 4 of those goals come to fruition. And I wish I had her fortitude when I was younger and went after what I wanted. But it's all part of what makes me who I am today, because I needed to go through those things. I needed to, how do they say that? I needed to be tried to see if I could handle these things. So everything I've gone through over the years have been to help build my character and make me into the person that I am today. And one of those things was getting to write. And so little by little, I started doing that and having things published, which was great. And then one day, a few months ago, it came to me that I needed to be journaling. And I have no idea why that popped into my head. It just came and it would not leave. So I thought I better go and do some research on journaling and find out what it's all about. And this brings me to leaving a legacy behind. Now, many people I've talked to have said, I don't know how to write. I don't even know how to start. I don't know what to do. So I've got 5 tips here that I'm going to share with you today on getting started on doing some writing. And it doesn't have to be journaling. Now, this is a PowerPoint because for some reason, my Microsoft Word products are acting really slow. So I'll be sliding things up and down. So you want to journal or any kind of writing, but you hate to write because you don't know how to get started. You don't know what to do. What can I share with people? How should I put it in words? Well, one of the things you can do is take some drawings. You can take some pictures. I used to like to draw stuff. Most of it was stick stuff, didn't look too good. And sometimes I doodle things and then color those in. But you can just start from there and then describe what it is that you just written. I mean, drew on the paper. You can take pictures. You can take pictures out of magazines. There's tons of pictures on the internet that you can use. It's a way to get you started. What you do is you look at it and what is this picture telling me? And then you write what it says to you, not what you think it's saying to the whole world, but what it's saying to you. And that will help you get started on your journal or even writing a book. The second one is doing diagrams. You can use diagrams or flow charts or mind maps. Now this one here is more like a flow chart. I prefer mind maps myself because I can have all these points going in all kinds of directions and stick them, stick whatever message I want on them. For example, and I couldn't find a decent mind map, is why I don't have that on there. I probably should have drew one, should have, but I didn't. At any rate, what I would do with a mind map is take my circle, put myself in the center, and then draw a little line out here, and then put whatever it is that I want to say, for example, about my son. Okay, what about this son? And add more points as to what I want to mention about him, and then go to the next person or the next thing that I want to write about. That helps you get started because now you got some ways that you can actually get going. Okay, what do I want to say about Arian? Well, Aaron is my really, really sports-minded kid. My one he was good at every sport he played, and a list of sports that he did and how he did it. At one point they called him Bigfoot because when he played soccer, he almost always made the goal. And so they always wanted him in the game. And other things about him that I could put on there to get me started writing. And it doesn't have to be about family. It can be about anything. It could be about some things that you do. You can make points to list them, all the things that you want to share, to write about. This is a second way that you can get started to get yourself going. And it's pretty easy, I think, but not everybody is going to feel comfortable with that. So now we have another one. How about writing prompts? For example, this is an easy one. Why am I feeling this way today? And what is causing me to feel this way? And that could go in any kind of direction. I'm feeling bad because I had to get up this morning. I didn't want to get up. I wanted to stay in bed. I was thinking about this book. Could be laying up there reading my love story. And instead I had to get up because I promised to be on the program today. So that's my answer to why I'm feeling this way and what's causing me to feel that way. You can find prompts anywhere. The internet is full of prompts. We are so fortunate today because we can go to the internet for almost anything that we want. For example, you can tell about a special event in your life or something that you're really good at. Writing can begin with anything. And the great thing about writing is that once you start, it triggers the mind to come up with other things to write about. And Lisa, you probably know all about that because you mentioned that you really like writing and you were into grammar and all of that stuff. So once you start, I used to tell people, just when you get stuck, because they say people have writer's block. I don't know if it's real or not, but if you get stuck with writer's block, just sit there and write. You know what? I'm stuck. I have no idea what I want to write next, and just keep going in that direction until something comes to mind, and then you can start there. You don't have to save the junk that you put on there. But most of the problems that people have today when they want to write is that they think it has to be perfect. It has to make sense when they put it on there. It has to go in a logical flow. And that's not the case. I had to learn that the hard way myself, that just writing, and then when I go back and later, and I don't go back and read it right then. I may wait 2 or 3 days and go back and read it. And then I can see, okay, this has to go, makes no sense. This needs to be worded this way instead. Then it starts to fall into place and start making sense. But this is what helps get you started in writing. The fourth one, and I put a little collage of my family up here. Take a collage of pictures, or if you've got a vision board that you created, things that you want to achieve, you can put it up there. This helps you get going. For example, this, when I look at this picture, I'm reminded of my husband. And in those happy times, uh, my husband was the kind of person that people loved. I mean, I don't think he ever had an enemy. He was just the kind of person you automatically took a liking to. This is my granddaughter and my grandson. And this is the grandson that I raised from, I had him from the time he came home from the hospital. He's 29 now, so it's been a long time. Uh, it's another, this is actually a great granddaughter, and this is a great granddaughter. This is my son that they call Bigfoot, and this is my son that I'm going to talk about in a little while. But I could look at each one of these pictures and it triggers a memory of something that I could write about. So use pictures as a way to get yourself started. Doesn't have to make sense to anyone, just get yourself going. And then finally, now this, in this day and age, it is so easy for us to get going to write. So you don't like to write. You're afraid, you stare at that computer and you see that blank screen and you can't think of what to put on there. Or if you're using pen and paper, the mind is not coming forward with anything. We have recorders now. Everybody has a recorder. You got a phone, you got a recorder. And if one didn't come with your phone, you can go to the Google store and download a recorder on there. And you can talk about what you want to write. Just as if you were having a conversation with someone across from you. Just talk. And then you can later have it transcribed. Now, rev.com is a good place to go for transcription, but I found an even better one for me anyway, and it's called otter.ai. I downloaded that onto both my phone and my laptop. You can record on there and it transcribes at the same time it's recording. So if you don't do more than, I believe it's 5,000 words a month, it's free. To do more than 5,000, it's either 5,000 or 6,000. But if you're doing more than that a month, then it's like $9 or $12.99. I forget what I'm paying for it, because I do a lot of writing since I blog. But it's an easy way to write. And when you get the transcription, you know there's going to be some mistakes in there, because depending on how you pronounce your words, if you have an accent, it's going to say what it think it heard. And when you go in there, you can always translate, correct those mistakes. And again, because you're in there, you're making those corrections. What I found happens is something that maybe I didn't think of when I was talking will pop into mind, and then I can include that with the transcription. So it's an easy way for those people who feel that they can't write or they don't have time to sit down and write. Have yourself a recorder, record everything that you want to say, and go from there. Now, journaling, I consider it an investment. And the reason I consider it an investment is because it's not just writing up things that happened in your day or happened in the past. It's also a stress reliever. It's good for health and welfare. I mean, people have heart problems. You can release some of that tension that creates those hard situations just by putting stuff in a journal. So I consider journaling as one of the best investments that you can make in your self-care, and urge you to start journaling. Now, the thing that journaling did for me, it helped me to put together a book. The first book that I actually wrote that has my name on the cover. I'm not part of someone else's book. And that for me was, oh my, that was that was a major, major accomplishment. And I can never, it didn't even start out that way. It started out, and I'll just share this story with you. It started out because I was having some things happening in my life at that time that were really rough, major for me. And I didn't know what to do about it. And I just started writing it, putting it on paper, what was bothering me. And when I got through writing it, and I was thinking about it, and I thought, okay, so now you know where you're at and what's wrong with you. What you gonna do about it? How you gonna get out of this situation that you're in? And I ended up coming up with 5 ways that I could get out of the situation that I was in. And I wrote those down as well. And when I looked at it again later, a few days afterwards, and I thought, with some tweaking, this is a book. And that's what I ended up doing. I tweaked it, got it to where I wanted it to be, and it became the first book that I made that actually had my name on it. And this is the book that came from my feeling down in the dumps. It's a short read. It's only about 60 pages, but it tells how I was feeling and how I got out of it. Because after I after I came up with these ideas, I had to actually go and do them. So if somebody asked me about it, I could say, yeah, it worked. It actually worked. But I do put a disclaimer in there because you may come up with something totally different when you read my story. You may say, oh, well, she did it this way, but I think this might work better. And I'm okay with that. I just want you to have a way to get yourself out of the dumps, to get yourself where you're feeling good about yourself, and you can go out and help somebody else. My story, I hope, helps someone else who finds themselves in that situation where they feel like um, they have nowhere to go. And I'll tell you the truth, I was feeling so bad. I was questioning why I was even here. And you don't ever want to feel like that. Everyone here has a purpose. The Lord put us here for a reason. And I've come to believe that my reason is that I'm to help people. I'm a nurturer. That's who I am. I support people. I help push people. And I enjoy doing that. That's a big thing for me, to actually help you get to where you want to go. And I'm not looking for the big bucks to do it, but I'm not stupid either. I need the money because there are projects that I like working with. There's a program called PM, People in Need. I like supporting them because the woman who started that program, even with COVID, and she wouldn't let me help her because at my age, she wouldn't let me help her. But even with COVID going on, she was making sure every week she was there with food for people who were homeless or low income. And she did that faithfully every single week. And so I like supporting her. And one of the ways of supporting her is through donations. So yes, I do need to make a few dollars in order to continue supporting her. Now I want to talk about the other thing that I came to realize, and why I talk about leaving a legacy behind for the future. When my firstborn son, started kindergarten, I gave him this book called School Days. You know how it is when you hit the first one, you do all kinds of things for them that you don't think about when the others come along, because now you're tired. You know the routine, so you don't really think about those things. But I gave him this book, and then I promptly forgot all about this book. My son, for whatever reason, had made it his mission in life that he was going to go to school every single day. He would not miss a single day of school. And he kept that promise except for one day, and that's because he broke his toe when he went out for when he was going out for basketball, and he had to have it bandaged, and they bandaged up his leg all the way up to his kneecap. Well, he made the first round and he had to come back for the next day. And he's got this cast on. And I told him, I said, well, you just have you won't be able to play this last year because you can't go out there with that cast on. He went anyway. He messed up the cast that was on his leg, but he made the team. So the next day he had to miss school because the school told him he needed to stay home. So he went 12 years of schooling, missed one day. And like me, he was the kind of person who didn't get sick. He took this book, and I was not aware that he was filling this book out. My son joined the military, and he was in Special Forces, 82nd Airborne Unit, and he was so proud to be a part of the the Army that I said Air Force, didn't I? Think about my nephew. He was so proud of being a part of the Army, and when he found out that he made the Special Forces unit, he was thrilled to death about that. And he had re-upped for a second 4 years when he met a young lady who he fell in love with. And he had gone on training, and he had promised her that when he came back, he would come straight to see her. Unfortunately, he, he died on his way to see her. He was in a car accident, and they believe he fell asleep behind the wheel. The military, when they sent his personal effects, this book was among those personal effects. I get to go back and revisit with him all those years as he was growing up. This was his kindergarten picture when he first started. I didn't put all the pages in here because I don't want to bore you, but I do want to see you to see how he aged. This was when he was in the 7th grade. This was when he was in the 10th grade. And the 11th grade. And for some reason, he didn't put his graduation picture in it, so I don't have that. And this is him in the military. That book is one of the most prized possessions that I own because it allows me to relive him growing up all over again. And when those times when I have, when he crosses my mind. And there are times when I'll see somebody that resembles him, features him, or does something that reminds me of him. And I have a need, I have to go back and relive that time with him. And I have this. And I was thinking about it. And I realized how important it is that we leave something behind for our families, for our children, my grandchildren in years to come. If I was to leave my, not if, because I'm working on it, and it's it's kind of, I'm playing hopscotch with it because I go here and then I think, oh, that's not important, but this is. So it's kind of a hopscotch thing. But what I want is for them to be able to look at something that I've written. For example, I haven't talked about this except to a few people. But I almost became a prostitute, walking the streets. My children, my grandchildren, or someone down the line may need to know how to get out of that. What I did to prevent myself from being in that situation, because it is so easy for guys to get girls and get them in situations that can ruin their lives. I have only told a few people about this, and they tell me I should be sharing it with more people, uh, because the thing that happened to me was when I went out there like a dummy, I couldn't have been out there more than 2 or 3 minutes when the police showed up, which is another reason why I like the police. I don't care what anybody say, I still like the police. The man showed, one stays by the car, the other one walks over to me, he looks at me and he goes, "You don't look like the kind of person that should be out here." And my reply was, "I'm just waiting for the bus." And he said, "The bus, huh?" And he went to say something else when the other guy says, we gotta go, we gotta answer this call. And I, as soon as they disappeared, the first bus that came, I got on it. I went home. I was scared and nervous as I don't know what. And I couldn't have been home more than 30, 40 minutes, something like that, when there's a knock on the door. And I know it's the guy. And sure enough, he wants to know why I'm not out there making his money. His money, not mine or ours, but his money. So I just looked at him and I said, "You know what? You just do whatever you think you have to do, but I am not going back out there." And he looked at me for a few seconds, turned around, and he left. Now, here's my theory of what I believe happened in this situation. Nobody's going to convince me that God didn't send the police to me. And I had a choice, either listen to the police or wait until they left, go over to another street and do what I had came out there to do. Instead, I went home. I chose to listen to the police. When the guy showed up at my door, I honestly believe God put an angel in front of me. And that's why that guy didn't do anything to me. Because if you know anything about pimps, you know they don't play around. When they tell you they want you to do something, that's what they expect, or you suffer the consequences. Nothing happened to me. I never saw or heard from him again. So that's a story I need to have written in case not only my family, but somebody else may be experiencing something and need to know how to get out of a situation. I honestly believe God's intervened, and by me listening, this is where I'm at today, rather than some worn out body who might have been on drugs and everything else. So this is why I think it's so important that we leave a legacy behind for future generations. Even today's generation of people can use the stories. I'm sure each one of you have something that you've experienced or gone through that others could benefit from. Don't leave this world without leaving something behind that will help others. It's too important. Each of us was sent here to serve others, to help make life better for others. And we can only do it by sharing some of the things that we've gone through and how we may have gotten out of those things. I believe my faith in God was what was there to help me, not only for that incident, but I could tell you some other stories that, that I honestly believe God has stepped in, and because I chose to listen rather than ignore, he kept me from being what he kept me from being somebody who may not even be here today. So
Wow.
anyway, Didn't mean to bring you down, so let me bring you back up. Let's share our story because we each have something very good that we can help others with. Lisa, what you're talking about is great because there are people who need to know how to bring in those extra dollars and they have no idea what to do. And you just got offered them 7 ways that they could go out there and bring in something. It doesn't have to be a fortune, but as you say, it adds up. I've even heard Tim talk about that. It might be a little bit, but it adds up. And that's what counts. I don't know Carol and I don't know Robert. I've heard Barry talking about doing programs with having done television and stuff like that. There's somebody that he could help out there. So Barry, get that book out there. Let's help someone so we can benefit. Nora, I know, has some stories and she should be writing those stories or at least telling them because there are people who can benefit from the things that she's experienced and the knowledge that she has. This girl, I'm bragging on her because she's my sister. This girl has a lot of knowledge and experience and she needs to be sharing it with others. I don't know Sammy, but listen, for each one of you, you have something that somebody needs. The reason I got with Tim is because Tim did something that he didn't even realize he had done. When I first met him, I met him through Katrina, and he was just as nice as it could be. And someone had told me about doing interviews, and I wanted to do them because I had saw Raven doing these interviews, and I thought they were great. And I knew nothing about it, but I needed to get started. And Tim happened to show up at another event that Katrina was doing. And he didn't know me other than he had met me one time. And I just walked up and asked him, can I interview you? And he said, yes. He made a friend for life just because he did that, you know? So somebody out there needs your help. Please, please, whatever you do, give it to them. And don't ignore a person because they may not have the fancy clothes or the best language. Just know that if anyone asks for help, be there for them. I want to see all of you leave your stories behind. And if you want to know how to put it together, I will put my information in the chat box and you can contact me because I do classes on journaling. And I do have one person right now who's actually putting her stories together to create a book. And I'd love to help the rest of you do the same thing. And that's my presentation for the day. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. You got me today. I'm willing to answer anything, no matter how personal it gets.
Ooh. Thank you, Lawanna. Oh my gosh. There's things to your story that I now have on my recording that I didn't know. Anyway, thank you, Lawanna, for sharing that. Guys, what we're going to do is we're going to take a quick 10-minute break here. All right. Go get some stretch, get yourself a drink. All right. And, the room's open. You can talk with Lawanna or Lisa. All right. Either one of them, ask them questions about what they did and what they can help you with in their subjects that they've covered while we take a break. Now is the time to reach out and talk with them. When we come back, I got one last session left. And then we're going to go into an open Q&A where basically all those who want to hang around, we can hang around and talk and ask any questions you want. All right, we'll be back here, and it looks like 20 before the hour. We'll be back here in just about 10 before the hour. So I'll see you back here in a little bit.